the first book of the Kings, and this is session 40. And I pray, Father Yhwh, this is now the history of your people. Now we are starting after all this exciting things about David and then Solomon, and then this horrible ascension of the paganism inside your very own holy people that you've chosen for yourself to be married to. Jeremiah 31 says, you were Israel's husband. And now we start seeing all the historical writings of the books of the Kings and the Chronicles. One king after the other. One king of Judah and a king of Israel. And then the next, and then the next. And as we count through them, there were so few that really did as David did. But most of them did what Solomon and Rehoboam did, and even worse, and like Jeroboam, and even worse. So, Father, we pray that as we learn all of this in history, as we see what you have endured with your people, as we see what you've done, all the grace and all the mercy you had, and all the fights you had, and all the attempts you made to try and lure them back to being in covenant with you, may we learn from this. May we, in these end days, as we are regathering from the four corners of the earth back into covenant with you, as you are bringing back your lost sheep into the fold, may we glorify your name. May these regatherings of the end days be an absolute reversal of the scattering of this history lessons that we are going through, verse by verse. Father Yhwh, may your name be glorified. May your kingdom come, and may your will be done. And today we are in 1 Kings chapter 15, the ascension of Abijam. Now in the 18th year of the king Jeroboam, so remember Jeroboam is king of Israel, the 10 northern tribes, the son of Nebat, reigned Abijam over Judah. So while Jeroboam was reigning still for 18 years, in the 18th year in which he was king over Israel, we have Abijam that is king over Judah. Remember in the previous session, chapter 14, verse 31, and Rehoboam died, and he was buried. And Abijam, his son, reigned in his stead. So now Rehoboam's son is king of Judah, while Jeroboam is still king of Israel. And he reigned 3 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Abishalom. And he walked in all the sins of his father. So Abijam did exactly the same as Rehoboam, his father. His heart was not perfect with Yhwh his Elohim, as the heart of David, his great-grandfather, was. So there's nothing ever written unnecessary in Scripture. We see the names of two women here, the mother of Rehoboam and the mother of Abijam. Obviously, that is the wife of Rehoboam. So it says in chapter 14, verse 31, the mother of Rehoboam's, her name was Naamah. She was an Ammonite from the people of Ammon. And then Abijam, his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Abishalom. So I'm just wondering if these women were following a godly lifestyle, if these women were women of Yhwh, if these women, never mind just being women of Yhwh, if these were proper mothers who cared about their sons, would they not have turned out different, these boys, Rehoboam and Abijam? Would they not have turned out to be, good human beings, strong men who looked after their kingdom, their wives, their children, and who had a more beautiful personality, a stronger character? Never mind being still pagan. But I mean, the evil things they did, they didn't care. Remember Rehoboam? He wanted to tax his people to death. I mean, the Bible says in Proverbs 1 verse 8, my son, hear the instruction of your father. Do not forsake the law of your mother. Ephesians 6. Children, obey your parents, for that is the right thing to do. Proverbs 23:22. Listen to the father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she's old. So, if these parents were better parents, but now we know the fathers were not, but if these women at least, if these mothers really cared about their sons like any mother would, she would teach him the right things to do. She would teach him to be honorable, to be a man of his word, to be trustworthy, to be honest, to be fair, to do the right thing, to do good to other people. But both these mothers, their names are mentioned and we read over them quite quickly. Maybe it's time we stop and have a look at what their names mean and see if we can find something in there. Because obviously these two mothers represent their sons. They are the backbone. Any mother is the backbone of the son. And it always says, this son came after that father and he reigned for so many years and blah, blah, blah. But not in all the kings do we always see the mothers' names. But it's actually very interesting. Our father, Yhwh, specifically instructed that the names of the mothers be recorded as well. So let's look at Rehoboam's mother. Her name was Naamah. And if you look at the Hebrew, it means pleasantness, to be pleasant, to be a pleasant woman. But if you look at the root word of Naamah, it is Naam. And Naam means pleasure. So as we know, people in the Bible, their names has a lot of meaning. We've seen this a million times since the books of Genesis. It is absolutely astonishing. Joseph meaning increase. Benjamin meaning the son of my right hand. And we saw all the prophecy in this. So this woman from Ammon, the Ammonite, who were always enemies of Yhwh and Yhwh's people, and how Yhwh's people is now intermarrying with the enemies, intermarrying with the pagans. And paganism comes with pleasure. And Naamah's name is the depiction of that pleasure. And, this is now Rehoboam's mother. She was one of the wives, obviously, then of Solomon. So she was this pagan Ammonite woman who was lustful, and her life was all about pleasure. She represented the pagan pleasures of the world. And that's probably how, together with all the other pagan wives, she lured Solomon into, uh, pleasurable things. And as this, men in the Bible times received a lot of pleasure from their wives, they were more willing to then give their wives what they wanted. So this woman wanted Solomon not only in her chambers, but she also wanted Solomon to enjoy the pleasures of her pagan gods. And that's what the son saw. That's how Rehoboam grew up. That's the milk he drank from his mother when he was a child. The Bible talks about the mother's milk of the Torah. But you also get the mother's milk of the satanic kingdom, where a woman, when she gives birth to a son, not only her milk sustains this boy and makes him grow up, but in that milk, her words, her actions, her philosophy, her religion, her belief is sucked up by that boy. He drinks it, he eats it, and it's inside of him, and that's what makes him grow into the man that he then becomes. And we are always astonished when we look at the Bible names because, in Afrikaans we say, wie lekker lag sal lekker huil. Those who laugh a lot will end up crying. After a lot of pleasure, there's always depression. After a lot of eating and drinking and having a big party, the next day you are so depressed and you're alone and you've got babbelas and you're sick and you drank up all your money or whatever. So, yeah, it's interesting. After pleasure, there always comes depression. So after Naamah, which means pleasure, we now have the mother of Abijam, and her name is Ma'aka. And Ma'aka means depression. Isn't that amazing? So it is a downward spiral. The root word of Ma'aka is Ma'ak, and it means to press, to pierce, to bruise, to stuck, to be pressed down. It's not a good thing. Now, yeah, we also have Beth Ma'aka, the house of depression. It's a place in Palestine, a pagan worship place. Let's look at the name of Jeroboam. I think we didn't yet look at the name of Jeroboam. So Jeroboam is Yarobam, Yarobam in the Hebrew. And rob means to toss, to grapple, to wrangle, to have controversy with, to defend, to complain, to contend, to debate, to rebuke, to strive, to fight. And by now means people. Remember Lo Ami in the book of Hosea and in Romans, those who were not my people, Lo Ami, they will be called my people, Ami. So means people. Isn't it amazing? Jeroboam had a big fight with the people of God. Yahuwah's people. Jeroboam was fighting with him, contending with him. So 3 years, Abijam reigned in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Ma'aka, and she was the daughter of Abishalom. So Abba Shalom, he could have given his daughter a better name. And he also walked in the sins of his father. Nevertheless, although he walked in the sins of his father, Yhwh gave him a lamp in Jerusalem to set up his son after him and to establish Jerusalem. Because David did that which was right in the eyes of Yhwh and turned not aside from anything that Yhwh commanded him all the days of his life, save only in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. So besides the problem with Uriah and Bathsheba, everything else, David's whole life was dedicated to Yhwh. And Yhwh allowed for prophetic reasons and also for instruction reasons. He allowed David to also just be a human and make these horrible human mistakes. But David he was such a man that loved Yhwh. And remember, Yhwh made a promise to David, there'll always remain a man of you on the throne. And here we've got Rehoboam, the worst you can ever get. You get Solomon that went down the pagan path like no other one ever did, from being so high to descending so low. And here you've got Abijam, he did even worse than his father. And yet Yhwh has this mercy. That's why I prayed this morning, Father, all this has been done to you. None of these kings walked in the footsteps of David or Abraham or Isaac or Jacob. None of them even listened to the prophets. You started sending them prophet after prophet after prophet, and they rejected them. They killed some of them. They threw them with stones. They threw them in the prisons and in the dungeons. They ridiculed them. They hated them. They made the whole nation of Israel to hate them. And yet you kept your covenant. Because, Yhwh, when you make a covenant, when you say something, when something leaves your mouth, we know it's your breath, the ruach that leaves your mouth. We know the words that leave your mouth is Yeshua. So when Yeshua and the ruach goes out from you, they will not come back to you void. They will not fall to the ground and be trampled or changed. You are not a man that you can lie. When you speak something, you keep it. You are the only trustworthy and honest and consistent and reliable one there is. Because even though king after king after king turns their back on you, you remain loyal to the covenant that you made with David. Not even the worst abominations and blasphemies from these kings can turn you away from keeping your covenant to David. And that's why I know that in the end days and in the tribulation, when things go really dark, there's one thing that I can know for sure. Nothing of what you've spoken, you will change. You've spoken the darkness. I know it's going to come. You've spoken all the things that we can expect in the end days. But you've also spoken that through that, you will purify a people for yourself. And you will bring to fulfillment all the promises you've made. You will establish Jerusalem. You will wake up Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and David from the grave. And you will restore all of us again as one nation. You will gather us Gentiles, pagans that turn to you and that are grafted into Abraham's seed. You will bring us as one nation together with Abraham into the promised land. We know we can trust you because you have proven yourself trustworthy. Even when you had all the right in the world to take your promises away and to change your mind and to destroy the kings that followed David. But you didn't, because it's not about them. It's not about us. It's not about the world. It's not that you owe anybody anything. You owe David nothing. David is flesh and bones. You owe him nothing. You loved him, yes, and because you loved him, you made this covenant. And because you made this covenant, you're going to keep it. But not because of David the man, but because of Yhwh the God. Because of what you are, who you are, how you are, you will never change your words. Even if there was no David, even if there was nobody that followed you anymore, you will still let all your prophecies play out exactly as you've spoken them. And you will still bring to pass all the promises that you have established, even if there was no human being, because you are Yahweh, the Almighty. It is just what you are, trustworthy. You've got character. You've got strong moral compass. And nothing can steer you off your ways, Father. And I praise you for that. And I praise you for what I'm reading here in the historical books of 1 Kings. That even though all this was done to you and your heart was broken by your people so many times, you never went away from your covenant. You gave Abijam a lamp in Jerusalem. You allowed his light to shine in Jerusalem because you allowed him to have a son that will follow him as king. We continue. 1 Kings 15 verse 6. And there was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days of his life. Now the rest of the acts of Abijam and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And there was war also between Abijam and Jeroboam. So Abijam really followed in his father's footsteps. And where the war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam ended because Rehoboam died, Abijam just took over. And Jeroboam didn't even stop for 1 second. His war just continued straight through with the son of Rehoboam. And then Abijam died, and he slept with his fathers, and he was buried in the city of David. And now Asa, his son, reigned in his place. All right, so we had Rehoboam, and then Abijah, and now we've got Asa. All right, for interest's sake, Abijam in the Hebrew is Abiyam, and Abi is Abba, father, and Yam means the sea or the ocean, to roar like the sea, the surf, it's roaring, a large body of water. So the father of the sea, a seaman, the father of the ocean. And that's what Abijam's name pertains to. And then we have his son. His son's name was Asa. Um, yeah, in the Hebrew, there's not really anything I can find, but Asa was also the name of a Levite somewhere in the Bible. And we're going to read quite a lot about Asa in the next couple of sessions, the king of Judah. All right, so 1 Kings 15 up to verse 8 has given us the history and genealogy of the first three kings of Judah after David and Solomon. And now, verse 9. In the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, reigned Asa over Judah. So Jeroboam lasted quite a long time, isn't it? Jeroboam was king together with Rehoboam. Then Rehoboam died, and his son took over in the 18th year that Jeroboam reigned. And now in the 20th year that Jeroboam reigns, you've got Asa that takes over from Abijam. 41 years reigned he in Jerusalem. This is now Asa. So Rehoboam reigned, and then Abijam reigned 3 years, and now Asa reigned 41 years. His mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Abishalom. And Asa did that which was right in the eyes of Yhwh, as did David his father. So after the pleasure of Rehoboam's mother Naamah, and after the depression of Abijam of Maacah, we now have Asa. And let's see, Asa's mother's name is also Maacah, also the daughter of Abishalom. So, this is weird for me. Maybe we'll find the answer somewhere in Chronicles when we get there, because he can't be the brother of Abijam, because it says in verse 8 he's the son of Abijam. Anyway, Asa did that which was right in the eyes of Yhwh. Now, I'm not sure why, because if this is the same Maacah, that's the mother of Abijam, and she didn't teach her son to do right in the eyes of Yhwh, how come Asa chose? How come Asa is different? And this we're going to find as we go through the kings of both Judah and Israel. We're going to find a lot of these king after king after king that is evil, and sometimes even worse than all the kings before him. And then suddenly, one son is born, and suddenly he does what's right in the eyes of Yhwh. Suddenly he turns back to Yhwh. Suddenly he's a king that brings the whole nation back to serving Yhwh. And then we continue reading, and then his son, who becomes king in his place, goes back to being evil again. I can never understand this. I can never understand how a king totally turns a nation back to God. And then his son is born, and he just goes right back to paganism. But I also cannot understand how you've got Solomon, Rehoboam, Abijam, the great-grandfather, the grandfather, and the father, both being evil. And here this son is born, and for some reason, his heart is like his great-great-grandfather's David's heart. And I'm always wondering, that's why I don't ever stop to pray. You know, for people to be drawn to Yeshua. Yeshua says, nobody comes to me unless the Father draws him. And this son Asa could never have done what's right in the eyes of Yahuwah if somehow Yahuwah, if he didn't obey the voice of Yahuwah. And Yahuwah doesn't scream down at anyone. There's this constant voice in nature. There's this constant voice in your heart, in your conscience. And some people refuse to listen to it. But some people actually do spits hulle ore. They choose to listen to that and open their ears to that. Asa took away the Sodomites out of the land. So, right, all the homosexuals and all the Sodom and Gomorrah people that did the pagan rituals at the temples, to awaken the Kundalini. If you guys do the second video I've put on YouTube about the 10 kings of the Daniel chapter 2, you'll understand why sodomy is so important in the whole pagan Freemason Illuminati system. So not only did he remove the actual men and probably, yeah, I don't know, children and all the people that took part in the sodomy, but with that he also took away the whole pagan temple structure that was established by this sodomy that was fueling the paganism in the country. So he took that away. He also removed all the idols that his fathers had made. So who's this fathers? It's from the time of Solomon. David never made an idol. Solomon made idols for all his pagan wives. Rehoboam made idols. Abijam made idols. And here comes Asa. And he breaks down all of it. He basically cleanses the land. And that's why it's just absolutely astonishing for me that, his son can never follow in his footsteps again. And also Maacah, his mother, even her, he removed from being queen because she had made an idol in a grove. And Asa destroyed her idol and burnt it by the brook Kidron. Oh, this is amazing. I mean, Yahweh says in the Torah, when a prophet comes to you, and even what he prophesies comes true, but he says to you, let's go and worship other gods besides Yahuwah, then you must kill that prophet. Even if your brother, the son of your mother, comes to you and he tries to lure you away to worship other gods besides Yahuwah, your hand must be first in killing him. So Asa is not even allowing his own mother. He drank at her breast. She cuddled him when he was a baby. Any son loves his mother above all, but he did not even allow her to do what she wanted. And her paganism, that she built the idol in the grove. Groves are these secret, mysterious forests under every green Christmas tree, the whole thing. So he even found that idol and he broke it to pieces. And it says he burned it by the brook Kidron. Now we know the Kidron Valley. We believe this, that's how the Gehenna fire is typified, because that's where Yahuwah will, with the fire that comes from his mouth, he will destroy when the nations, after the second Exodus, after Satan is released from Abyssos, after the 1,000 years, they all will surround the New Jerusalem. And then in the Kidron Valley, you've got all the rubbish of Jerusalem that was burned there, and all the people that died, the bad people that died, all the criminals were thrown in the Kidron Valley. That's why it says the worm never dies, because there's constant feeding for the flames and the worms. And that is outside Jerusalem. So outside Jerusalem, God will then burn all the nations that surrounds Jerusalem, if you read Revelation, the last 2 chapters. And here it's a beautiful end-day prophecy that Asa is burning even his very own dear mother's idol in the Kidron Valley, proving the end destruction for everything that is against Yahuwah. But unfortunately, he didn't do everything. He did a lot of good. There was a lot in his heart. But once you turn to Yahuwah, you need to get out of Egypt altogether. Like Israel went out of Egypt, but they still kept Egypt in their heart. Every now and again, when there was trouble, they wanted to go back to Egypt. So that's a problem. When you leave Egypt, you must leave it. And you must get Egypt out of your mind, out of your heart, out of your life. The same with come out of Babylon. You must make an end of everything that is part of that pagan system. So the high places he did not remove. Nevertheless, Asa's heart was perfect with Yahuwah all his days. So unfortunately, he did not remove the high places. Hopefully you know what that means. High places, remember the Bible says, I look towards the mountains. Where will my help come from? My help is from Yhwh. Because on the mountains, on the high places, on the ridges of all the hills, the people will worship their pagan gods. The higher you get to the gods up there in heaven somewhere, that's the better for you. So they did their disgusting sodomy rituals in the temples and in the groves, and all the white witch and interesting esoteric spells and things. You do that under the green trees. Your what were these guys called? The Druids. The um, you even see them still today in Britain and England. They are very much in the new age and in the nature worship and worshiping the gods of nature. So they do their rituals in the groves, in the secret forests. But most of the altars and the incense altars to these gods were built on the high places. So it's good that Asa destroyed all the idols and he chased out all the sodomite priests, and he broke down even his own mother's idol that he found in the groves. So he cleansed the land from the bottom up, but he didn't finish his job in the high places. He did a lot of good in the low places. But high or low, left or right, you can't leave anything, because like Yhwh said through Moses, if you leave anything behind of these pagans, it'll be a thorn in your side all your life. So these high places would prove to become a thorn in the side of Judah after Asa's heart was so perfect, like David's heart towards Yhwh. And he probably brought Judah back so close to Yhwh and brought the worship of Yhwh back. But that little thorn in the side, those high places, it stood there as a testimony that as soon as you die, Asa, as soon as you are gone, you Yahuwah loving king, then the next kings are just going to bring us back to our pleasurable pagan worship. Okay, tomorrow we'll continue with chapter 15. There's quite a lot of history for us to go through, and I just hope we really are able to learn so much about Yhwh, so much about his reliability, so much about us as humans, our unreliability, but also so much about how even amongst a whole nation and a whole royal house that doesn't worship Yhwh, you'll find individual men and women every now and again that will rise up. And that will be like, that's why Yhwh called him a lamp. Remember, nevertheless, for David's sake, did Yhwh, his God, this is now talking about Abijam, give him a lamp in Jerusalem. Because this lamp is now Asa, his son, who reigns in his place. And Asa was a lamp. Asa was lighting the way back to Yhwh. Okay. Yeah, that's it for today. And I'll see you again tomorrow.